Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Well, we've had some little bit of upsets today in the 2A world, and I thought I'd cover those real quick before I try to cover something a little cooler. First off, our governor in New Mexico has renewed the health order for the suspension of 2A rights in public spaces in Bernalillo County. Her reasons are that it's led to more arrests and it's led to more guns coming off the streets. Now, KOBF, which we all know is kind of not on our side for a news area, a news organization in New Mexico, there isn't a lot of them in New Mexico that are on our side. In fact, I don't know of any, to be perfectly honest, that actually sides with anyone in the 2A. When it comes to news events, usually they're very biased, and you can see it right away in their reporting. But KOB has done a really horrible job with this one, where they're basically siding with the governor, and I have a couple problems with this idea. Number one, leading to more arrests is not necessarily a good thing. If someone was doing something, like exercising their 2A rights in New Mexico and carrying openly or concealed, whatever they want to, do, that's up to them. And then to be arrested or have some sort of legal penalty against them, that is constitutionally incorrect against New Mexico Constitution and against the United States Constitution. So those numbers of arrests, if they have happened and gotten larger, here's the funny thing, they haven't necessarily disclosed what those arrests are for. So those arrest numbers could be inflated because the left or this type of government, our governor specifically, likes to inflate numbers. She did it with COVID, and she's using those COVID actions that she took during the COVID era against us. There was a lot of us in the 2A community that were really bucking against the system because we knew that if we gave this governor this much power, she would abuse it. Well, a year after everything settles in New Mexico, or not even a full year, she's done exactly that. It wasn't very long ago that she just lifted the COVID orders because she was being threatened in the roundhouse. So she has said that this is going to be an issue that she's going to bring up during the roundhouse session, so during the normal session where they discuss budget and everything else. So expect to have to go down and protest. I know I will be. I will be in a better financial position, I hope, by then, so I can actually traverse down there, and I'll gather my troops and my people, and we'll go help protest. Expect that to come down. She's using the tragedies that have happened in New Mexico that are squarely because of crime more so than anything else, and because of parents' disengagement with kids as a mechanism to try to go after civilian disarmament. We can't let that stand in New Mexico because our governor specifically, likes a lot of policies that come from California and New York. And if we allow this type of thing to happen and there's no pushback, she will continue to push on it for other things that we absolutely cannot accept in New Mexico. New Mexico is still one of the highest crime states in the union. It's also one of the highest unemployments in the union. It's also got the lowest rate of education. So we're one of the lowest performing public school education entities in the United States. Why is that? It goes back to failed policy. Policy with Democrats, and that's what we have to call a spade in New Mexico. That's what this is. If the longer we have Republicans or any party in particular lay down and kowtow to the majority, quote unquote, the majority of the officials that are Democrats, we're going to get the same type of result. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We've had 93 or 95 years, something like that, of Democrat rule in New Mexico, and it's starting to show. It's been showing for a long time in New Mexico. We need to fix that. Okay? What she's really highlighting here, and she's using kids, the violence that's happened in Albuquerque specifically with kids. There was a shooting this past weekend where 2 kids were messing around with a gun. The gun went off, and they refused to call 911. And I believe one of the kids died or ended up in the hospital. Doesn't really matter. What really matters about what I mean, it doesn't really matter, is they're using this as a political tool. Rather than focusing on the tragedy and how to prevent that, which is squarely on anyone who is a member of the 2A. You train your kids so that when they finally do get into guns or they do see guns, that they know what to do with them. That would be more effective than the Safe Storage Act that they've pushed and passed, I believe, or no. Yeah, they did pass that in New Mexico. Than it would ever be for anything else. I know this firsthand. I have 3 kids that I adopted. I taught them very early on at 9, 5, and 3. They were introduced to firearms then, and now it's not even a thing for them. And why I did that, I've spoke about that on this podcast a couple different times. It's more so because that's what my dad did to me or for me, but it's more so, like I said, you don't know what's going to happen at somebody else's house. And I'd rather my kids, or any kid, have a clue of what the hell they're dealing with so that they can learn to stay away from something or not get involved in something because they know the dangers associated with it. Kids aren't stupid. And I think more often than not, the more we try to lie to them, shelter them in some cases from bad things, and we should shelter them from a lot of things like porn and all kinds of other stuff. But in this case, this is kind of a safety thing. This is life, health, safety. We teach kids very early on how to walk across the street, to look both ways. We teach them what to do in case of a fire. I'm not telling you to teach them how to be tactical. I mean, that's up to you. I personally think that they should have a basic modicum of what gun safety is. That this is a tool that if you don't use it right, it will kill you or kill someone else. And you need to instill that respect so that they don't end up in those situations where they're messing with something that they're not exactly sure of what the hell it is and end up hurting themselves or someone else. Enough of my soapbox about New Mexico. It's just tiring because New Mexico we're always on this fight. And we have other fish to fry. We have a budgetary crisis in New Mexico. We have a crime crisis in New Mexico. The gun situation and the crime crisis don't go hand in hand. What actually goes hand in hand is if you look at crime statistics, it's 100% related to socioeconomical issues more so than guns. If you look at places that are really prone to crime, there isn't a lot of economic activity. People with a lot of economic activity tend not to commit crimes because they are more content with life and are busier. And that's the simple fact of the matter there. In other news, something that is kind of a dual. We got hosed in one way, but we got a blessing in another way. And let me explain. So the 7th Circuit Court, this is out of Illinois, they sided with the Illinois courts basically saying that they weren't going to have an en banc panel to allow their assault weapons ban to be heard in court, despite what Amy Coney Barrett had said that they should do. So this case has basically ran its course in the 7th Circuit, which means it's going to, and we lost, meaning that they kept the assault weapons ban using the wrong case law, using the wrong law that doesn't even exist. They still did this and pushed forward. But the silver lining in this cloud is that this is probably going to have to be going to the Supreme Court, the actual Supreme Court, because this cannot be settled in the 7th Circuit Court anymore. That means we'll get a definitive answer about assault weapons bans. And once we get a definitive answer, that's it. Now, some people would say worry about that. But if you look at what has the track record has been of the Supreme Court lately when it comes to 2A, we're in a very good position here. Using the Bruen decision and the Heller decision combined, we have a very strong leg, or a couple strong legs to stand on when it comes to assault weapons bans, because there is no historical precedent for any of this happening. That means that whether they like it or not, the leftists in the court, they're going to have to side with this, because that was already decided in case law, that the Heller decision, the Bruen decision, actually means they have to prove historical precedent. In every case that they've had to use historical precedent throughout the land has ended up being a win for the 2A. So there is a silver lining in this, that while it sucks that an entire region covered by the Seventh Circuit Court now has an assault weapons ban. However, seeing as this is a larger issue, it's an issue we've all been dealing with for my entire life in the 2A, which is assault weapons. It's a coined term. It is not a real thing. The only assault weapons that really existed, or assault rifles that really exist, are the ones with the giggle switches, which we're already prohibited from having. So there is no such thing as an assault weapon. An assault weapon can be, words. It can be your kitchen knife. It can be a book if you beat someone with it. We have case precedent, court precedent, that's on our side. And it looks very good for us to go to the Supreme Court with this particular case, because we should probably win, which is a red banner day, a gold banner day for the 2A people, for our community, because it would be settled finally in federal statute, which means that they cannot reverse it. Okay. Now, let's talk about something a little cool. So let's talk about something cooler, right? Like I was saying. Cabot Arms, or Cabot Guns, has released a double stack 2011. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the 2011, but this thing looks sick. First off, it just is aesthetically pleasing, just like the John Wick 2011, that the Statico, I think is what it is. I think I want one of those too, and it's probably cheaper or about the same price as this one. Price point on the MSRP on the Cabot Arms or Cabot Guns is right around $6,000. Let me look at it. $5,995. But what you get with this is a stainless steel lower. Pretty much form follows function. Blacked out suppressor height sights. You can mount a red dot to this if you're so inclined. They've done some different work with the extractor so that you can't see it like a traditional 1911 or a 2011. It uses STI mags, which are known for being highly reliable. That's what is in the Stataco or Staco, or I can't even say that one either, but I can say the Cabot. This is called the Insurrection, and it has it's very elegant, is the best way I could say. Check it out. Colion Noir did a video on it. That's probably why I saw it. It was one of the gun tuber things, one of the cooler things I've seen. I have a 1911. It was my dad's. I will probably always have a 1911. They're one of the first pistols I was ever exposed to, and there was a point in time I used to think that the 45 hung the moon. Then I shot in competitions, and I actually went to several tactical classes to learn how to use a pistol, especially after the shooting. And I learned that having more rounds is a good thing. So the 1911 I have, I take it out and go recreationally shoot it. Probably would never carry it because it has sentimental value. It was my dad's. But I definitely am probably going to get one of these when I can afford it. 2011, I don't think I would buy a Springfield, mostly because I think Springfield's junk. They've been junk since, well, since they were bought a long time ago and they're now no longer our national arsenal, they are a conglomerate that buys guns from Croatia and imports them into the United States and then stamps them with, hey, we're all American, all bad A, except for we'll sell you down the river the first chance we get. Cabot Arms, on the other hand, man, this is fiber optic front sight. Okay, so that is different than the one Colion Noir had. Stainless steel lower, 3-pound trigger, hand blended and finished, full plasma DLC coat and matte stainless steel finish available. The safety on it is supposed to be one of the better 1911 safety styles, so it's kind of in that Goldilocks zone of not being too stiff and not being too light. It also still retains the grip safety like all 2011s or 1911 style guns do. The cool thing about 1911s and 2011 style guns are the triggers. I cannot compare my Glock or my SIG to a 1911 trigger. They'll lose every time. There's a reason why the 1911, not the 2011, has been around for 100 years. It's because it is one of the proven designs that, it was made by God's right-hand armorer, John Browning, the design is. So it's supremely good. 1911s have a tendency to, mine in practice, have had a tendency to be brand ammunition specific. Now, I found 1 or 2 rounds that usually cycle 100% of the time. But again, I know some people that have tweaked 1911s to turn into race guns, and man, those things run better than anything else I've ever seen, with the reliability of the Glock or the SIG. So if you're willing to tune it, and you're willing to fit it, and you're willing to spend a little bit of money to, tune a 1911, you're going to get a very good gun. I don't like carrying cocked and locked anymore, meaning that in a single-action gun, you have to have the hammer back and the safety on to have one in the chamber. It's not a big deal. I just see it as a spring part or a spring wear issue over time. But again, that's just my own thing. I know people, there are law officers that carry 1911s all the time. Sheriff of San Juan County carries a 1911, and he's proud to carry one. I personally, that's just my own hang-up with them. If I was going to carry a hammer-fired gun and not a striker-fired gun, it'd be one that was double action so I could drop the hammer in a safe manner so that it didn't fire, and I'd have that double action trigger pull and then the single action. Just so happens I've become a Glock convert. I can shoot a Glock almost as good as I could my 1911. That took a lot of practice and a lot of time. My Glock 19 is my go-to pistol. It is that and my 26. If I have to choose a pistol to go to war with, one and only one pistol to go to war with, it isn't even going to be my SIG. It's going to be not my 1911. It's going to be my Glock 19, because I know I can take any mag that up to the 33 round mags. If it's a double stack Glock, my 26 would be the second choice. And the reason why is the same thing. It's the magazine compatibility. Now, as Smith & Wesson has taken more of that market share, I've been looking at the M&P line because I like the M&P. The M&P has a better grip angle than a Glock, and they're American-made. Glock is still made in Austria, except for a few that are made in Georgia, Augusta, Georgia, I believe. If you can find them, they're great. A Glock's a Glock. To me, a Glock is like a Honda Civic. It just works every time, all time, every day, all day. It's one of those pistols. If you want to buy one and you don't want to sit there and think about it, you don't want to trick it out and tweak it out, you don't have to. You absolutely can with a Glock because they've been around forever. I would say that's part of their problem also, is that they haven't really innovated where other people have. SIG with their P320 series and their P365 series has definitely changed and knocked the 2A community, especially in concealed carry, on the nose and let us see that, we're no longer stuck in those days of having this big, heavy gun that you need to conceal. The P365 is very concealable, but gives you almost the capacity of something like my Glock 19. Technologies change, That's what's so cool about the 2A. And to see something like this, you're just going to have to look at it yourself, because it is a very gorgeous gun. And if you're in the 2A, you'll understand what I mean. That there's certain guns you see that you have to look at and go, wow, that's very pretty, so to speak, as ladies would. But a lot of guys would be like, wow, that's a damn good-looking gun. Okay? I don't know if it's $6,000 good, but if you're in the market for a 1911, something that's different than all the bad news that we got today in our 2A community, remember, we're still winning. I mean, if we weren't winning, why would Alex Jones be able to come back onto Twitter? Okay? That sounds like a goofy thing, but if we're not winning the culture war, we're losing in other places, and we're winning the culture war. You're seeing that window shift. You're seeing more and more people come around to the gun community. You're seeing more and more people become aligned with freedom. It's because we've lived under that oppression long enough when it came to the COVID stuff, and people's eyes got really open then. Now, that leads into the presidential race, and who knows with that. I think there's a lot of law and order people that if Trump gets convicted won't vote for him. But that's something that the party itself is going to have to deal with. I don't really care because I'm a libertarian. And I will, truth be told, I'm not even a full libertarian. I'm an ANCAP. And I have my political leanings. And a lot of people will say that, it's because of us libertarians that we're losing ground. No, it's because you guys have lost a lot of face when it came to standing up for our rights. You had a chance back a long time ago to stand up and say, no, right is right, wrong is wrong. And instead you're like, well, maybe if we just cede this ground, we'll get some concession later on. Instead, you got your butt kicked in every race possible. You lost continually to our competitors, and you've ended up ceding a lot of freedoms for nothing. And that's where I split from the Republican Party. I still have some conservative leanings, but I am ultimately for the freedom to choose whatever the hell you want. Like, share, subscribe, most importantly, be great.